I'm Adrian Rose.
I am Kane Roselle.
And I'm the art.
And I am the science
of transformation.
And we are Coast to Coach.
Hello, everybody. I'm Adrian Rose, and I am the art.
And my name is Kane Roselle. I am the science of transformation.
And we are joined here today by Mr. Kevin Carton. Thank you, Kevin, for being here.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited for this. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So why don't you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself, who you are, your work in the world.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Kevin Carton. I live in Denver, actually technically Westminster, Colorado. I just moved about 5-6 months ago, but most people know Denver more. And I am a life mastery consultant certified through the Life Mastery Institute. And my specialty is in helping people live their soul's purpose. So I really believe that we each have a unique purpose, a unique reason that we're alive here on this planet at this time in human history. And so I found that it's really my purpose to help people live their own, because this world needs more people who have come alive in living what they feel is their reason to be alive. So I'm sure we'll get much more into that, but that's just a short introduction of who I am.
That's beautiful. I love that. And one thing, I am honored to know Kevin in person. I got to meet you a couple of years ago at a live event and then at another live event. And one thing that has always stood out about you, Kevin, and this is a beautiful thing, is that you have gone after your dream from a very young age. Is that a big part of your story at this point, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it always will be, even as I grow older, because it's where I started. I'm 27 now at the recording of this, and I really started my journey in changing my life at 21. When I first got into my first coaching program, which I know this is a podcast all about, coaches. And so I didn't have a vision of being a coach at first. I actually just needed coaching. And at age 21, which I know is very different on the range of people who actually seek out coaches. But I think that's changing. So it's a big part of my story.
It's really cool too, because part of what we've been doing in this season is really highlighting how diverse this field is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really something. Like we have everything from, folks that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that are coaches. There's people that are your age and everything in between. It's unbelievable. And not only that, like how many specialties and fields, but I've noticed there's a lot of folks realize like, hey, there's such a thing as a life coach, but they don't know that there are life coaches that just specialize in spirit, or life coaches that are just like straight up Christians. And that's what they coach, is other Christians, male or female, right? Doesn't matter. Or other people that are just like health and wellness coaches. Like people think of a nutritionist or a person at a gym. But what happens when you're a life coach that's a health and wellness coach? You see, it's like a different area. So it's a really, really cool thing to have you in the mix, because you're so different than what other people, have as their story, as where they are in their life, or what your specialty is. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
So in what way did the coaching you received at such a young age inspire you to become a coach?
That's a really good question. Well, in my I first signed up for just a program. It was a 3-month program called the Dream Builder, and it was a self-study. So it wasn't coaching, but it was in the realm of personal development and just changing your life and changing your mind to change your life. And so it started to really turn the gears in my head that I am more than my history. I'm more than my past. I'm more than I thought that I was. And that's really what inspired me to then hire a coach or get into a program that was specifically in coaching. And it was a year-long program. And that year really inspired me to become a coach, because how quickly my life changed. Like, really short story about like my past is I was in school to get my doctorate in pharmacy. And I'd left that career path because I really felt like it wasn't aligned with my own purpose. I just felt deep down it wasn't why I'm here. And I didn't really have words for it back then, but I just knew deep down that it wasn't. And so I felt lost. And it took me a while to make this decision, but I eventually left that career path after 4 years. I got a undergraduate degree, a 4-year degree, but I didn't continue to get my doctorate. And that was literally like after I graduated was when I got into that year-long coaching program. And in that year, I went from working at a community pharmacy just as a part-time job to then getting a job working for my fraternity. I doubled my income in doing that. I then became a yoga instructor, which was really started to become more aligned with what I really wanted to be doing. And then I got a job working for a multi-million-dollar life coaching company at the end of that year after just 1 year of coaching. And at the end of that year, I tripled my income in total. So like I looked back and thought like, oh my gosh, I have this much potential in me. And I didn't even feel like that I accessed all of that potential that I could have accessed in that 1 year. So that's really what inspired me, is because if I can have all these results at my age, like what could people do who have different experiences and have like built up their own belief in themselves and their own, like have done their own personal development by themselves, because that's what I had done before I got into a coaching program. So I just got really inspired by what I had done and my results, but then I could see for others when, in their own journey with getting a coach. So I just know that we all have so much more potential in ourselves that we have yet to access, and coaching really unlocks that.
Now, do you feel like, or do you see that your clientele is quite diverse in age, or do you find you attract an audience more than another?
Yeah, good question. Because of my age, I thought I was going to be attracting more younger people. And that's actually what I identified, like when I first started my business, was I wrote out my ideal client is like, oh, millennials that are in their own, what I call a quarter life crisis, because that's where I felt like I was after I graduated. So that's what I thought I was going to focus on. But my first client was 22 or 23. But after that, like it ranged. Like I've coached people in their 60s. Many of my clients ranged in their late 30s, early 40s. Another woman that was in her 50s and had 4 kids. Like, so it really ranges. But what I found after a couple of years of doing this, that I really, the foundation, or what was the common denominator for all of my clients, was that they all had this feeling that they have a reason that they're here on earth. They have a purpose, and they really were seeking a guidance into helping themselves live that. So that's kind of the common denominator, but it's very different, very vast.
I love that. That's so awesome, Kevin. And I would like to touch on one thing too, really quickly, is I know you said that you were going after your doctorate, and we hear this a lot in our field, right? That we're going after something, we're going after a profession, and then we hear that little voice say, oh, I'm not on the right path. Do you remember, was there a particular moment for you, or was it more like the whisper that got louder and louder and louder?
Yeah, so it was a bit of both. So there was a moment, and I remember this, but it kind of built over time. But I remember where I was, what was happening around me, that had this epiphany that, like, pharmacy was not my path. Was I was working in a community pharmacy in New York. It was Rite Aid Pharmacy, and I was behind the counter. I was a pharmacy cashier. I was just doing an internship, and I saw the same people coming back again and again and again for the same issue. And as I thought about that, I realized that the medications we were providing really weren't helping them heal. It was like a Band-Aid over the actual, like over even just a symptom, rather than something that could actually deal with and heal the underlying cause of why they had high blood pressure or why they had different illnesses. And I just felt horrible about being, that like kind of like just pill dispenser, really, that I wasn't really making a difference. And so I could just seeing people coming back again and again, I realized, like, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I saw that, the pharmacists that were working there, I mean, they were, pharmacists for decades, and I didn't want to be living the life that they were living. So that's really like what caused it. But then over time, like that still small voice started to build, because there was still a lot of logic saying, oh, you should stay in school. You'd make great money as a pharmacist. You've already invested almost 4 years in that path. What would your parents think? What would your friends think? Like it's so many logical reasons to stay, but that small inner voice was saying, this is not for you. So as I listened to that more and more, it got louder and louder, because it was about a 6-month span between when I first had that realization that pharmacy wasn't my purpose to then where I made the final decision to actually leave.
I know that feeling too, because when I went through that, it was kind of like, oh crap,
Yep.
I had all this direction and momentum in one direction, like a house with a mortgage, a new car, family of 5, the whole 9 yards. It was all like invested around store management, which I did okay at. And I had that schedule with those hours, with those benefits and, all that stuff. And then it's just kind of like, screw that one up, didn't I?
Yeah.
But that was part of the learning. Like it was a gentle kind of I screwed that one up. It wasn't a big deal. You feel the gravity because, there's always some level of uncertainty that we have to deal with when we're shifting from one path to another. But it is inspiring to me to see how, even though I was that far along on one path, I wasn't so far that I couldn't turn and go to a new path.
Yeah.
And as did you at a young age, being 4 years in school, having that. By the way, what friends did you meet in school that were all on that path that probably also thought you were a little bit something or other because you didn't agree with what they would do?
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
You're not able to adequately explain everything that's going on in your mind and in your heart to people. Because, vocabulary, right? It limits us tremendously.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we can't just direct up and download our thoughts to another person.
Yeah.
You had all of that social stuff to contend with, and you still said, you know what? Not for me. Not going to happen.
Yeah. It takes courage. And that's hard. It's hard to build on your own. Like if I didn't have all the books that I was reading, I was listening to some podcast, or it wasn't really podcast. This is 2014. It was like YouTube videos. And I was like on Bob Proctor's email list. And so just there was a lot of support to feed my dreams, which is necessary. Otherwise, the doubts. And then of course, like you were sharing, like the well-intentioned thoughts and beliefs of others to keep you in the same path. It can be limiting. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you listened to that voice. You actually, when I've thought of you over the years, I see you like being, for sure, you'll be at Bob Proctor level.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of my biggest gifts. I think I got to enroll quite a few coaches, over 150, into this world, working for a company. And when I remember one time a younger one asking me, am I too young? And I said, it's so funny because often we hear, am I too old? And then I hear, am I too young? And it's like, no, because look at how far you can go.
Yeah.
And it's so, so exciting because we're all needed. We're all very, very different and all needed. So if you were, let's just say nobody, of course, we hope people reach out and work with you, but let's just say nobody gets to talk to you. What would be the one piece of wisdom that you would love to share with somebody? Like if you were to, I know it's hard to narrow it down to one thing, but just one piece of wisdom that you love to share.
That's a really good question. And since as I mentioned, my mission here is to help people live their soul's purpose. My one message is that we all do have a purpose, and it's very unique to each and every one of us. And that speaks to us through what we feel makes us come alive when we think about it, or when we're talking about it. Like, so just start to notice in your life where you come most alive. It could be in art. It could be in talking with people. It could be in coaching. It could be in giving people advice. It could be in, climbing mountains. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but what matters is that you identify something and then put your energy toward it. There's a great quote by Howard Thurman, who is Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor. And he said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. So we just have to identify that and then go do that. And that's hard, as we were mentioning sometimes, with other people believing that what we're thinking of is not possible, or it's not logical, or it's not reasonable. But just to start listening to your soul, start listening to your energy. And it comes through, it's very simple, but not easy. But the simplicity of it is that if you feel more alive when you're doing something or talking about something, then lean in. Go towards that, because it has wisdom within it. And ultimately, you'll just live a more happy life. That's all what we all want, right? Just to feel fulfilled, feel happy, and enjoy the life we're living. And that comes through when you are taking action and making decisions in alignment with what makes you come more alive. So it's just that it's so simple, but it's often not done. So just encouragement to just do that.
I would say too that how perfect a world is it that genius and wisdom are so easy to communicate that we can transmit it from one to another, and yet it's so complex to live and practice. But what happens is then somebody has a coach like you or somebody else, or even a friend or a mentor, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is you say something that really like hits a bell, and the person can take it home with them.
Yeah.
And then try to apply it. I stumbled upon that a week ago or something, just how amazing it is. Because I often would tell people that, great truths often are easier said than done. But it never had occurred to me how fortunate we are that the basic information is so readily transmittable from one person to another. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's amazing. And that as our mind just starts to turn over those simple truths, then it reveals more and more to us, because as I mentioned, like, we're all unique. So we're all going to take, unique messages from these simple truths. So it's just how we process things. But yeah, I love that. It's just so simple.
In your coaching, do you find that your clients focus on one of the 4 domains over the other ones?
Yeah. So when I say, like, I help people live their soul's purpose, I really believe that our purpose here is, first off, the very foundational level is to just become more of who we really are, to understand ourselves as spiritual beings, having a human experience, and that we're a co-creator with the power that has created this entire universe. And one of the ways that comes through very strongly is through our vocation and the work that we're doing in the world, because it's in service of others. And I really believe that the next level of our purpose is from the foundation of just, being a co-creator with the universe, the infinite, is then how we do that is by taking action, by serving others, by creating something, by, again, serving others in some way that's unique to us. And so, my main pillar, or the domain of life that I help my clients with, is in their vocation, which then is tied, of course, to time, money, freedom, because most of our work produces income for us. So that's the main area of life.
And how perfect it is that even the quadrants overlap so much, because what was I doing? I was doing a video for one of my groups the other day, and I was talking about like things that you do that are extremely impactful in your life. And so in my case, and in many of our case, I know most of my circle, regardless of whether they're coaches or whatever, we're so in alignment with our vocation that that's also our friends, And so there's 2 domains right there. And then, of course, your relationships get impacted. And, of course, your well-being especially gets impacted. So just that one thing that you're talking about in vocation, how you use your time and talent in the world, that's a high-impact thing when you're in alignment. Yeah. And what happens, at least what happened to me, and I'm sure you, like, I'm reflecting back on your 4 years of your undergrad and the new friends that you made. In my case, my new friends all identified me as like Coach Kane, if you will. Like, that's how everybody knows you. So when you have discussions with people, you sort of frame them around that, or they, or vice versa. Like, if you're talking to a friend of yours that is a doctor, you may want to bring certain questions or comments or whatever, like something that you saw on the news to them. So what happens is when you're in alignment and it radiates from you, like, that really becomes your new identity. And doesn't it serve all 4 of the areas?
Yeah, it really does. Absolutely. And one just to add to that you touched on is like our health and well-being. It all is interconnected, of course. And in order to really live your purpose and fulfill your mission and have a vocation that's really fulfilling to you and serves you and others, you have to be in your peak health so that you can be, performing at the highest level. So it's all so interconnected, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Good. I love that. Also too, one of the, part of my story, not to go into my story, but when we're not in alignment with what we do. So let's say you stayed as a pharmacist, right? For me, I stayed and I have my master's in psychology and I wasn't using it. And I went back to my normal management career and I was absolutely miserable. And I stayed too long. I heard that voice, I ignored it. And then it can I'm a fitness girl and I was sick. I wasn't exercising. So it can also go the opposite way too, right? That when we're not in alignment, it'll affect every single area of our life. That's why what you do, what we all do is so important to hear that inner voice. Where is that inner voice leading you to go? Because that voice is the voice of our intuition. It'll never, ever lead us astray.
Absolutely. It's a great point.
Yeah. And for those people that don't know the 4 quadrants, just real quick, their health and well-being, our relationships, and of course that's all of our relationships, our vocation, and then like we said, our time and money, freedom, and they're all so completely, intertwined. And I love that, because if we don't have our health, we literally don't have anything.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Has there been one, one mentor or one thing that really, really helped you transition, like really form major results in your life working with a mentor?
Absolutely. Yeah. And one that we all share is Mary Morrissey. She's changed my life forever. And I will also mention Bob Proctor, because funny stories. As I mentioned before, I was following Bob Proctor before I got into just, coaching and, or receiving coaching, any program like that. And Bob Proctor just shared Mary's work on, his email list. And that's actually how I got connected, because they're both, such close friends. And so I've been studying with Mary for now 6 years.
Yeah. And, I can speak to that too, because I'm naturally, and Adrian will jokingly, lovingly tell you, much more inclined on the science side of things, the left brain analytical. But, those two, both of them are heart-centered.
Yeah.
But I found that, Mary's very, very soft and emotional and beautiful in that way. Bob is, from the way I see it, just very logical. This is what works, just a different way of packaging the information.
Yeah.
But I found that having both really mattered, because one person spoke my natural language and the other one helped me understand parts of me that were there, but they needed some development, and also helped me relate to other people on that level, which is a really special thing. Thank God for all of the different mentors that are out there in the world. We commonly talk about those two, but you've got the Les Browns, you've got the Dr. Wayne Dyers, you've got the Abraham Hicks, there's so many of them. And then of course, all of the coaches, because many of these people have their own schools where they teach people to become coaches in their train of thought, so that they can bring their own part of the story to the world. I love what we do. It's such an awesome world. And to be able to connect on this level, and even if, I know Adrian had mentioned our mastermind earlier, there are people that are not life coaches in our mastermind.
Nice.
But what happens when you're in alignment is you just attract such greatness into your life in all areas. One of you may be able to remind me the quote about the grateful mind and how it always looks for the best in everything.
Yes. From Wallace Wattles' work, The Science of Getting Rich.
Yes. It's a good one. It's simple, but for some reason I can never verbatim just get it out. But in essence, you train your mind from being the grateful mind to keep finding the best in everything. You expect the best, you attract the best, and so you become the best. That's the idea behind it. And haven't both of you had that experience in your own life with this?
Absolutely. Like attracts like. I'm with you on the science side of this. That's just, it's a law, physics. You can't refute that. It's great.
How many times, I could just picture Bob going, "It's the law."
Yep. Yep.
I know.
Yep. And one thing that always rings in my mind when he speaks is he gets really emphatic with this. He says, "You got to think." It's like, okay, Bob, I'm thinking, I'm working on it.
That's right. Oh, he does get so emphatic.
Yeah.
He
awesome.
really does. Yeah. He cracks me up.
Yeah. Wakes us up.
Yeah, and he does. And, but he'll say, right, and this goes to your point about it took like a good 6 months, right, for you to go from A to B. He'll be the first to say, I have studied this every day for 55 years. You don't just read it on a book. And when you study it, you don't just dissect a paragraph. Take it to your life.
Yep.
I just had a conversation with somebody about the law of attraction just 2 days ago. And a very analytical mind, old friend of mine. And he's saying, I've read this, I've heard it 10,000 times, blah, 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 kind of like a dismissive attitude. It's like, wait, you read it and you've heard it 10,000 times. What did you do? Because the truth is, right, if you don't really test it, because it comes from the inside, you can't see it. You have to actually believe it to test it. Then you can test it.
Yep.
But if you come in with disbelief because everything is so sensitive to the energy you bring to it, then you're never going to get the results that you're actually looking to get. You can't, because you're coming from that predisposition of this is nonsense, but I'm going to test it just so I can disprove it. Well, congratulations, because as Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So what do y'all think about that?
Adrian, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm all about belief, right? To me, it's I know, speaking of Mary Morrissey, that's one of the things that drives her nuts about the movie The Secret, is they left out the part about belief. And I have seen so many people, especially with law of attraction, go nuts because they try, but they don't believe it, right? Even this little tiny part of them doesn't believe it. And so to me, belief is the biggest thing. And that's why I love the saying, if you don't believe it, borrow my belief until you do, right? Borrow Kevin's belief, borrow Kane's belief, Bob's, Mary, the Rock, the God, whoever you need to, right? Whoever you need to borrow until you believe it with everything in you. So I think it's such a huge part of what we do. And also too with coaching, right, is we believe in our clients, and sometimes we believe in them a little bit more than they believe in themselves. And that's okay, because I had a mentor believe in me more than I believed in myself at some point. So until we can lift them to that point, and then they believe it with everything in them, and then it's like sky's the limit.
Beautifully said. Love that.
Yeah.
We are limitless, in a funny way. It's like it's almost like the body itself is like a resistor in the circuit. There's only so much energy that it may be able to take, but the source from whence it comes is limitless.
Yes.
Our practice very much is to learn more and more how to tap into that, how to interpret it and apply it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And it really is amazing. Most of the universe, just talk about the observable space that we have, we don't know. We don't understand. It's funny hearing physicists make up terms like dark matter, dark energy. Like, that's the best you got? Come on. I've seen some of your names. It's like 56 characters long. But they don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
But then here we come, right? It's like, check this out, law of attraction. Check this out, law of increase. Check this out, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's so far removed from what people are taught. And yet, isn't it interesting that the ancients have known this for so darn long? They may not have had technology and instrumentation to test. I just had a conversation the other day. Light is the technology of the universe to transmit information. It's interesting, we used words like enlightenment, illuminated, forever. Or you might say, I don't know a lot about that. I'm kind of in the dark. Huh. Right?
Yeah.
So this has been out forever, it seems, that we have been associating the light with knowledge and the darkness with unknowledge, lack of knowledge, right?
Yep.
Don't laugh at me. I see you. But for real, right? We've been just talking like this forever. And now it's like, boom, the two are meeting together. It's so cool.
I'm with you on that. I'm not, just to be clear, because I don't know if your podcast goes on video, but I'm not the one laughing. I was so into this. Like, keep going.
We are not going to use the video. We've talked about it, though. We talked about it because there's inherent benefits to both, you know?
Yeah.
But too, like, I don't know. It's like when you see people, it can be a little bit distracting. But on the other hand, you really get the essence for who they are or what they do, you know? It's not so much what we say, it's how you say it. But 80% of communication is what? Nonverbal.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, like I light up like a Christmas tree over this stuff because it really is the core of who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
Us as coaches, we get lit up enough that we want to actually make a profession out of this and really like show people how to apply it. Some people resonate with me, some people resonate with you, or whatever the case may be. And then other people, they just come to us. It's like, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and I need to be in alignment to do it. How do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
And I am so honored to like serve and to help, like show people like this is what you do. And I get the sense from both of you, like there's so much heart and love and awe in all of this and our part to play. And of course, from our own life stories, we can see how the attraction happens. I only mentioned how the circle of friends change. But if we to take that even a step further, how on your worst day, maybe 5 years ago, the conversation might have been down in the dumps just complaining because that's who you were surrounding yourself with. But now you call another coach or you call another doctor friend, you know, or somebody who's huge into yoga or whatever the case is. And all of a sudden, instead of just venting and having that kind of cathartic activity, you come out maybe with a new piece of wisdom, or you get a new idea that you get hooked on. You're like, I want to go apply this.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
truly amazing. And that's just circle of friends. Never mind like your health part of it. I mean, that's like friends and well-being, those two pieces. But how does that impact your health? I mean, we can have a whole conversation about cortisol, couldn't we?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the nervous system and how it regulates it all, like, and our breathing, like, oh my gosh, so many tools.
That's right. You're exactly right. You know, you'd be a great person to do something on that because your area of study was directed in that area.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there's so much that happens physiologically, you know, and the crazy thing is in this society, like where we have technology now, you choose ignorance over whatever it is. And by the way, that's not 100% like a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you think about it, our brain naturally filters things that apply to us and don't for a reason. There's a reason that I don't see this monitor as a collection of molecules. It's far more efficient to be able to just point and click, mute, unmute, video, not video, whatever the case is. So there is a reason why we have selective focus. However, when it comes to areas like this, areas of study that impact your mind, body, health, spirit, all of it, you got to become educated and you got to apply it, right?
Yeah. As Bob would
I'm
say.
on a roll today. I'm going to mute myself now.
The phrase that sparked in my mind, because I'm listening to some audio from Bob. He says, you got to study. And that's really, I mean, it's all it. Like, as long as you stay in the study, quote unquote, whether that's through personal development books or audios or coaching with a mentor or a coach, like all of this included, like all together, is really the sweet spot. It's like you apply all of these different modalities of learning, then, you know, you change and your life changes because everything of our outer results comes from who we are inwardly. So, yeah.
Yes,
I love it.
1,000 times.
Yeah. And of course, it's the action, right? I love the saying that intention without action is merely entertainment.
Yep.
Right? Because one thing that I'm sure you've seen it, Kevin, and Kane and I just had this conversation that I've seen happen time and time again, because especially those of us who love to learn, I'm one of them. I love to learn. right? I'm like a sponge. I will do this work for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But there also comes a point that we need to apply it. I have seen so many people like you, right? You said I signed up for Dream Builder and then I took it to the next level.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people, right? And I say it with absolute love. They do buy book after book after book, or do program after program after program, but they never apply it. They never ever take action. And then of course they get frustrated, right? Because
like,
they're not
this
getting
doesn't
results.
work.
Yeah, exactly. And so there comes times that it's like, okay, and listening for me, it's always been listening to that little internal voice, like, okay, Adrian, you've learned enough, now do it, right? Stop and go do it. Like I said, I'll always be learning, always be listening to podcasts. And of course I have 2 coaches. I can't imagine not having a coach. But then there comes a point, just friggin' do it, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think one other part to that too is that, let's say that you're beginning this new path, all right? And it appears like you're starting to make the change, you're getting a little bit of the education, you're starting to apply it, but you've got to remember too that you have years of old ways of doing things that have to run their course before the new changes happen, as much as they will in the future. Almost in a way like you plant a seed, right? But it takes time. We call it the law of gestation. So there's 2 parts to that. There's the part of the seed that's just growing, okay? But then there's the condition, like we talk about in Dream Builder, of the soil that it's in. Not only how are you feeling, and all the like worthiness, forgiveness, all these things that we talk about, but the things that you have done, okay? Those things have to run their course. Like, let's say, for example, last week you had a tough conversation, but instead of handling it in your highest good, you just totally tore the person apart. Well, guess what? There's going to be some residual stuff from that. And before you can move forward with forgiveness, for example, you may have to go back to that person and deal with the aftermath of that. Or same thing. Let's say that you have a compulsive gambling thing going on, and now like you're making the change. Well, you've got years of habits around that now you've got to break. Those are old things that are in your world that have got to run their course. Adrian often says, release and repattern, release and repattern, release and repattern. It's so true. But whatever those residual effects are, like you got to give them time to go. And so it may feel in the beginning like you're, okay, I'm doing all this work. It feels like I'm going uphill. I'm growing, right? I'm growing. I can see things clear, right? Right, that's what it can feel like in the beginning. But you got to let time go for the things that have those old energetic holdings go away. And that's one of the things I know for myself. Like when I was young in this work, or even at other stages before I really started to hit the coaching stuff, I would start something like weight loss is a good example. Like, look, dude, if you've eaten like pizzas for 5 days in a row, and then all of a sudden you decide to fast, sorry, it's not going to work the way you think it's going to work, because there are things in your body that have to detox. And that's, by the way, that has a feeling when you detox, doesn't it? Okay, you're not all of a sudden like 2 weeks from now going to be able to look in the mirror and be like, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. It takes time for the old stuff to go.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That's why we're all here, right? And then to help our clients do that, because we all have blind spots, and it's so much easier. I've been a person that my story growing up, I took care of me, so it's not a coincidence I'm an empowerment coach by any means, right? It's all prepared me to do what I do. But I remember the moment that I allowed help into my life. And it was like almost like I was able to take a deep breath for the very first time and say, oh, great. I no longer have to do this alone, right? That somebody believes in me, somebody can help me. And that's why I think we all love what we get to do, especially because it is our calling. It's very clear for all 3 of us, it's our calling. But then to be able to give other people that gift as well. So thank you for your work in the world, Kevin. And so speaking of that, how do people best find you, my friend? How do they find you if they are curious and connecting with you, working with you?
Absolutely. So my place I hang out most is my Instagram. So people can follow me on Instagram. It's Kevin F Carton, and you can follow me there. And then my website is kevincarton.com, and Carton is spelled like a milk carton or an egg carton, whatever you prefer.
For
Simple
clarity,
spell.
that middle initial,
Yeah.
SF, what was that?
Sorry, F as in Francis.
Ah,
Yeah.
so Kevin F. Carton.
Yeah. My my initials are KFC.
Love it. I was gonna say it's like fun, but there you go, KFC. That's
Yeah.
fun too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And then you have a podcast as well, correct?
Yes, I do. So my brother, Chris, he's becoming an acupuncturist. He's soon to graduate. And so me and him have a podcast called the Science and Spirituality Podcast. I bring more of the spirituality. Chris brings more of the science, although I do have obviously a touch of the science with me too. But yeah, we talk all things science and spirituality and helping people transform their lives. So any major platform, people can find that.
Love it.
Incredible. There's a lot of need for science-minded people to be able to find coaches and information is relatable to them. Adrian and I actually talk a lot about this because that's my side of things as well. So I'm happy to hear that you two have this podcast for that kind of information. That's so unique and so needed in the world. So thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just to touch on a point you mentioned even before, and I think it really plays into people who are more scientifically minded, is not just knowing the information, but actually applying it. And I always love to term it. I believe it's either Bob or Mary that it's coined this term, is that there's a syndrome called the I know that syndrome. So you can't just know about something, you have to live it. And by taking action, then you truly know it. Otherwise, you only know about it. So I think we even have an episode on that specifically.
It's kind of funny though, because like you would think science people would be on that because it's all about going to the lab.
Yeah.
But now the lab is your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't just have the intellectual knowledge about it. And I think mostly with scientists on that end is like the experiments are usually external. It's like I'm working on this, not going internal into myself. That might be the difference.
That's a really interesting point. I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Something to ponder.
Well, yeah, I'm picturing myself like applying that in a conversation with a science-minded person because it's important. Part of what we do as coaches is we build the bridges of understanding.
Yep.
You know, so what taking it to the lab looks like here is not necessarily the same.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, even when you go through the scientific process, like you can apply it, but it doesn't apply, I think, as directly in the same ways as having a petri dish in front of you with a heat source.
Yep.
You know, it's not exactly the same, but it kind of is. Like the loose logic still applies. You know? So building those bridges for people, that's incredible that you can do that too.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's fun too. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's the belief, right? That could be a whole nother podcast because if they don't believe it, is it going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Right? So it very much depends on your test subject also, because those of us who absolutely believe it, it'll appear in our lives. And those of us that don't, that'll appear in our lives as well.
Exactly. And just to add on to that, because with scientifically minded people, because then we can think like, oh, it's a placebo effect. Like if you believe it, like, well, but there's new studies, or relatively new studies that are coming out that really do prove that belief is necessary. And if you don't believe it, then it's not going to come out the way you want through quantum physics. Yep. And one experiment that I think of that I encourage people to just do a little bit of research on is the double slit experiment. Mm-hmm. And there's a simple video, 5 minutes. It's even got cartoon, like it's a cartoon, like animation of showing, the power of this double slit experiment and how our consciousness actually affects matter based on what we believe and what we see, what we visualize. So, and that comes from a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? I love that movie. It's more of the science. It's like, I like to say it's like the scientific secret movie. So yeah.
It really is. If you could, if you could send one of us the link to that video, the double slit experiment.
Sure.
We will throw it in the comments somehow. We'll find a way to get that out there for our viewers here.
Great.
so that they can access it.
Yeah, it's super powerful. I think of this experiment all the time when I think of my own belief and visualizing, and yeah. Whoop. I just pulled up the video, so I'm gonna send it to y'all. And here we are.
Aim, fire.
Yep.
Yeah. Sounds fun. Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Kevin. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I mean, even today, you're on to the next thing, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure though. I'm looking forward to staying connected with you both. I found that this is a really fantastic conversation, and I know there's just so many different, like, I love to go off on tangents, and I already have in my mind, there's at least a dozen different like avenues I want to go with the conversation we just had. So
It's going to have to be a mini series.
yeah, right. Yeah. So thank you each for having me on and reaching out. So I'm really looking forward to connecting more.
Yeah, man, you're a powerful spirit, and I'm glad to be connected to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Forever grateful. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, that concludes this episode. And Adrian, it's your turn. So every day or every episode at the end, we give Adrian a challenge. So let's hear it.
If I can say our podcast name.
Mm-hmm. Now you're thinking
great.
about it, right? This is makes
Yep,
it so much
I'm
harder.
really trying today. Coach to coached. Nope.
Nice.
Yep. Gotta laugh at myself, Someday. I've gotten it a couple times. I've like nailed it a couple times, but not today.
It is a little bit of a tongue twister. I will say that. I will say that.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it makes sense. But yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Yes.
It's been a wonderful episode, and thank you to all our viewers. Thank you to you two for being here with me and all of us spending time together, and we look forward to talking to everybody on the next episode.
Beautiful. Namaste.